Atem Nitsavim hayom kulechem. You all stand before me today on this great day. What day are we referring to? The Aramaic translation to this verse says, Yoma de Dina Rabba, the day of the great judgment, the day of Rosh Hashanah, the day where every single one of us stands before God and is given all the blessing, is judged for our past actions and for the future. Our sages in the Talmud of Beit Sai, in page 16, say that the parnasah, the sustenance of a person, is granted to him on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So this doesn't really make sense because there's a contradiction. Somewhere else the Talmud says in the name of Rabbi Yossi, Amar Rabbi Yossi Adam nidon b'chol yom. Man is judged daily. And every day, according to that day, he is given his sustenance. So are we judged on Rosh Hashanah? Or are we judged on the day every day of our life? To answer this, I'd like to share with you a story. One day, I was flown to Israel with a young man which unfortunately got addicted to oxycodone. He was taking tens and tens of pills, enough to kill a horse. But I don't know how he made it by the grace of God. We took him to Barzilai, to Dr. Weissman, in order to get a rapid detox. The doctor explained to me something fascinating. He said, you see, how it works in the brain is that normally, in order to have a high, to have pleasure, we have the natural resources inside our brain. We have endorphins, we have dopamine, and we have these receptors in the brain which feel the good feeling. What happens is, as long as we satisfy ourselves with our own excitement, the secretions of the brain have enough receptors to be able to receive and to benefit of the pleasures that we feel in our mind. The problem is when a person suddenly takes drugs. When he takes substances, he actually creates more receptors because now, in order to benefit and to take pleasure in these different substances, we need more receptors. So for example, imagine you only need 100,000 receptors in order to benefit of your natural pleasures, your natural secretions in your brain. Suddenly, you take an outside source to benefit of a new pleasure. Suddenly now you're going to have 1,000,000 different receptors which are created in order to benefit of the new pleasure which is external, which is not natural. It's like someone that's going on a diet. From now on, I'm going to stop the white flour, I'm going to stop the sugar, but I'm hungry. So if you're hungry and you have one stomach, you can work on yourself and really, if you're strong enough, if you have enough will, you'll be able to control your hunger. What happens if suddenly you have 10 stomachs saying, I'm hungry? It's going to be impossible. So that's what the doctor explained to me. As long as you have your natural resources, you have your natural receptors which Hashem gave you in your brain, then you can control the types of pleasures you will seek. You can take control of yourself. But the moment you've introduced a substance which is outside and you've created all these little stomachs, these little receptors which demand day in and day out more pleasure, it's almost impossible without cleansing yourself to be able to take control of your life again. On the day of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, God gives us all the blessings. As Chassidut explains, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed. God gives you the blessing and He gives you the receptors, the recipients, in order to receive the blessings. If you become a true recipient, you will receive an abundance of blessings with just enough receptors to benefit of life. If, on the other hand, As you go through the year, you lose trust, you lose faith, God forbid, for a moment. You go into a mode where you forget your connection with Hashem and you look for external sources. You do things which are not right in order to have more sustenance. At that moment, you become subservient to the outside instead of the great blessings that God gave you. So, on Rosh Hashanah is the time for us to become completely subservient to Hashem. Surrender to Him, become a recipient for Him. And the more space you give Him, the more He will fill your basket with blessing. And then for the rest of the year, you will continue with that same faith, and you will not need to be judged every day. The judgments of Rosh Hashanah will just flow, and the blessings of Rosh Hashanah will flow for the rest of the year, and you will not lack anything.